I want to start, Claire McCaskill, with just as a former White House staffer, as someone who worked for a president, the president looked like a dope. The president stood in the Rose Garden, talked about standing for peaceful protesters while his own government was literally gassing them. And then he makes this moronic walk under heavy military protection and waves around a Bible as though it's something he has never seen or touched before. I mean, just talk about how small Donald Trump looks today.
You know, I am so sad and angry and full of emotion about what our country is going through right now. And the nerve of this man and the people around him thinking it was a good idea to use police on horses and tear gas and flashbangs to move a peaceful crowd so he could go out there and do something that is at its essence so phony. And what's most insulting about it, I think, Nicole, is that he actually thinks that Americans believe that he is somehow a Christian. He's never read the Bible. He doesn't know what's in it. He hasn't been somebody who has attended church as president of the United States. He's never role modeled Christian behavior. He doesn't know the Beatitudes and the thing the Bible teaches about the least among us and that we care about them the most. And so for him to use this Bible, what I can't get is people around him who should have stopped him and said, this won't work. The people out there that you need to vote for you that aren't for you now, they're not going to buy what you're selling. You slept with a porn star when your wife had just had a baby, and you said in the campaign you'd never ask for forgiveness from God. Oh, my Lord. Pardon me to use the Lord's name in vain right now, but I'm at a loss. I'm just at a loss.
Eugene, I hear you chuckling. We are staring at images that are totally beyond Donald Trump's control. Thousands of people on the streets of New York City. Moments ago, we had a live report. Thousands of people gathered on the streets of Houston. Donald Trump has lost the thread on this country. This country is having a conversation about grief and rage about the way Black men and women, in some cases boys and girls, are treated by the police. And Donald Trump is throwing tear gas at peaceful protesters and not even trying to dive into the stream that is coursing through this country.
Yes, President Trump has a way of making everything worse, and he's certainly doing it today and did it yesterday. And I can't, I can't speak without first talking about you said he held the Bible as if it was an alien object. It was as if it had fallen from outer space at his feet, and he picked it up and was examining it. No idea what it was, and certainly no idea what was in it. But the country is having a conversation about race, an important conversation about race. And this is the way we do that. We do that scratchily. We don't all go to our public libraries on a given night and sit down in a circle and sing Kumbaya and have a heartfelt conversation about race. We rub up against each other in conflictive ways, and that is unfortunately the way we make progress on race. And the country has decided that this is a moment when we need to have a serious conversation about the way Black men and women, but especially Black men, are treated by police in this society. We've had protests in all 50 states, in more than 100 cities, thousands and thousands of people spontaneously taking to the streets and saying enough, and incredibly diverse crowds. This is, I am old enough to remember the riots of 1968, and I was in high school. Those were riots by African Americans who were in anguish and rage at the assassination of Dr. King. and the whole litany of injustices that they had faced. These demonstrations that we're seeing now are much more diverse and much more widespread in terms of the number of cities and the number of citizens involved, but no less angry and no less heartfelt. So the country is going to have this dialogue, and you know, the sad thing is that President Trump is going to get in the way of that dialogue, but we're going to have it no matter what he does.
You know, Jonathan Lemire, I think Eugene is right. This is the conversation we are having as a country. This is what is on television around the clock. And the only other story I think that is urgently needing to be told is the ongoing threat of coronavirus, which is a threat that was made worse for every American by Donald Trump's botched handling of early warnings in January in February of this year of just how lethal and just how dangerous that virus was. The two big conversations, the two big crises in this country, two areas where Donald Trump has either completely failed or been rendered irrelevant, not even really part of the ongoing conversations by his own design about how we test and trace and reopen the country in a safe way around coronavirus. And as Eugene just said, this president really has nothing to say. And when he does open his mouth, many African-American leaders and Democratic leaders think he makes it worse around race.
Certainly, this White House would much rather be talking about this, the violence in American cities and the protests, most of them peaceful. That's not what they're focusing on, rather than the pandemic. And a quick note about that. I mean, the president has been looking for weeks to change the subject. Did not want to revisit again the White House's and his administration's failures and its track record in January and February and early March to prepare the country for what was coming. And other than a stray comment here or there about the vaccine and the development that is still working on it, and let's hope it goes quick, the White House doesn't talk about the public health aspect of that at all. They are pushing for the economy to reopen. You're still hearing administration officials and the president himself talk about that. But that's not where he wants right now. This is everything the president is doing, of course, is with his eye on re-election, 5 months or so away. And that includes this, where he and his advisors feel like this is a cultural war that will help them, that will excite their base. And perhaps they believe if he embraces the mantle of the law and order president, which was what we saw him do yesterday in the Rose Garden, we have seen him do again today on Twitter, that there will be some Americans who are nervous about what they're seeing unfold across the country who will be drawn to that image. The Biden camp, of course, is playing this very differently. They're showing Joe Biden being a compassionate candidate, one who is listening to the community. President Trump has not ever really done that, and he certainly has not started now. What we saw yesterday was an attempt at a display of strength, of American might, or at least his perception of American might, to turn American federal forces on American citizens who at the time at Lafayette Park were protesting peacefully. For the president and his team, they wanted that photo op. They really wanted two photo ops. Yes, they wanted the awkward one, as it turned out, to be awkward one in front of the church holding the Bible. That's a notion of reclaiming territory outside the White House, also a nod to his evangelical supporters. But as advisors told me today, they also wanted the photo op of the park being cleared because they wanted to send a message this president is tough on that, and that's how they want governors and mayors across the country to handle their own protests.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.